have this really amazing story that was reported by Business Week, and it has to do with a very lucrative deal or offer that one young person received when he was in Virginia. So Gerson Torres was told by one of his good friends from the past that he had an opportunity to make $25,000 a year working for the CIA. Now that's interesting. What did they want him to do? They wanted him to rob banks in the Washington area to see whether or not they had the proper security measures put in place, right?
Oh, wow.
So
that's kind of weird that they'd use like a 21-year-old kid working at Target.
Right.
But okay.
So he's working at Target, he's making $11 an hour, and he's thinking, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me because I want to pay for my community college, I want to move out of my parents' house, why not, right? And of course, at first he thought it was a joke, but he had official letterhead from a government agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, indicating that they needed someone to do this work for them. And,
and remember that his friend that brought him in was a woman who actually had served in the military, and when she first met him in this context, she had her fatigues in the back, she had one black glove on. I know it seems kind of weird, but the person at the CIA that was directing this operation said, look, you need to have gloves on because we're going to need you to rob banks. We don't want to leave you fingerprints because we need to get a good, accurate test of what's going on here.
Right. Now, that woman was actually a good friend of his from the past named Caroline Villegas. And so he trusted her and he thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. Now, the person who set all this up was someone who went by the name of Theo. And so Theo told him exactly what he needed to do. So let me read those, those requirements to you guys. Torres was told to rob half a dozen banks over 4 days. He never met this Theo guy in person, but he allegedly worked for the CIA, right? The game plan included Torres knowing which banks he needed to target. Theo told him which banks. And Torres would give the bank teller or manager a note demanding money. Okay? If he left the bank with money, Torres would be paid $25,000. Torres would get $2,500 whether he left with money or not, okay? Torres should deliver any money to a location near Richmond, Virginia. If arrested, Torres should stay silent, wait for feds to get him within 24 hours.
So that's very specific instructions. Now, things started to go awry, right? Yeah. And so he goes with this person that he knew that was in the armed forces. She's driving. He goes in the banks. He doesn't know what he's doing. And he's been given specific instructions: don't leave fingerprints. If they call the police or the FBI, leave immediately. If it's gone past longer than 5 minutes, leave immediately, because they said we're doing a very specific test here. Now, keep in mind, it's really weird for the CIA or DIA not to bring you in, but to just tell you this. And the first time that he agrees to do anything, he's immediately sent on a mission to go rob a couple of banks.
Yes.
On that day.
Literally within a few hours, he was told to go rob a bank, and he did exactly as he was told. He had a note, and the note said the following: I need your help, I need money, my family is being held hostage, and a bomb will go off at 4:30. If you don't help, don't call the police or the FBI. Now, after he gave the teller the note, the teller said, well, if this is the case, I need to go tell my manager. And he said, no, don't tell your manager. And the teller went in the back and kind of huddled with other tellers to figure out what to do, and he realized that this was a complete and utter disaster. He ran out, he got away. He never got caught for that particular instance. Now, he did the same thing with a few other banks. It was a complete disaster, did not work. But finally, he went to one specific bank in Virginia. It was BB&T Bank, and the manager there knew immediately that the guy was going to try to rob the bank. He went there with a cousin and a friend and a brother-in-law, so 4 people. It's 85 degrees outside, and they're both wearing baseball caps, and they're wearing like these big sweaters, these big hoodies. So immediately she calls the cops, and Torres gets arrested.
So this is interesting because in the previous attempts, there was one time where Theo would then get on the phone with them, tell them where to go, where to hide out. And Torres would say, there's a helicopter above, and Theo would say, we're going to get rid of the helicopter, don't worry. And in the next set of attempts, he would say, hey, listen, you really screwed that last one up. You left some prints on the door, and the camera got to look at your face. So you've got to be more careful. So he seemed to have knowledge of what went down and law enforcement activities on this. So this is a hell of a mystery. I mean, there's something fishy going on here, it seems like, but at the same time, he seems to know things that how could any regular person know?
And you also have to keep in mind that this Theo guy is using CIA lingo. He knows what goes on within the CIA. He's very specific about certain things, which is why Torres and Villegas totally believed him and did what they were told to do.
So now here's where it gets really trippy, because when Torres is arrested, the officer involved gets a call on his private cell phone from Theo.
Yes.
And he says, look, guys, I got this from here. I'm, with the CIA, and you go ahead and let this guy go. Okay. Now, it's fascinating, and they're like, and he says, and I'm going to set up a meeting with you guys. I need you to come to this place, and we're going to meet, right? And one of the cops is a 20-year veteran of the force, and he's like, I've dealt with the CIA before. Normally, we don't meet at some random place. We go to the CIA, and they're in the Washington area, so that would be easy enough. It's like, there's something weird about this.
Yes, there was something weird about it. So as I mentioned, as Cenk mentioned, they did get a call from Theo, and Theo said the following. There was an exact quote that was mentioned in the article. Where is he? What have you done with him? You can't make people disappear. Only we can. So he's very ballsy, right? And you're thinking like, okay, this guy might actually work for the CIA. But
because where did he, and at one point, Torres is like, hey, listen, I got to go to work tomorrow at Target. And Theo says, don't worry about that. We got that covered. And a note shows up at his boss's office from a doctor's note saying, hey, Torres can't make it in today. That sounds pretty good, right? So there's a lot of reasons to believe that this guy is super connected and knows what's going on. And he just got the private cell phone number of the investigator involved.
Theo,
so did they let him go?
No. So here's what happened. Now, Theo also contacted these lawyers and told the lawyers, look, you need to represent this Torres guy in this case. I work for the CIA. I got him involved. He's in part of this very important operation. It's a covert operation. We don't want to mess anything up, right? And these lawyers are like, dude, who are you? What do you mean? What are you talking about, right? And, it seemed very believable. And the lawyers got in touch with Caroline Villegas, the woman who got Torres involved in this entire case. And Villegas very, very slowly started to reveal some information, including the phone number for Theo. Now, they found out that the phone number was actually something that was, it was like a fake number. He used the internet in a way to mask what his real number is, but through a little investigative work, they found out who he was, right? So Theo, of course, as you guys probably already know, did not work for the CIA at all. This was a massive scheme, and he turned out to be this 26-year-old named Joshua Brady. He's living...
Awesome.
He was living in Virginia, a small town 100 miles south of Washington, D.C.
He was living in his mom's basement, right?
Yes. Now, he is an extremely intelligent guy. I mean, he has a huge history of hacking and stuff, and I'll explain all that to you in a second. But he also did a ton of research on the CIA. He read book after book on the CIA, so he knew what the lingo was. He knew what the inner workings were of the CIA, which is why it was so easy for him to convince others to get involved in the case.
All right, so a couple of things I love about this. Now, the lawyers began to unravel this. But don't get him wrong, it's not like the lawyers got it right away. They took on the case in the beginning. He told me he was going to give him $45,000. The CIA had that budgeted for defense work. And they're like, oh, $45,000, that's pretty good. And they started to get suspicious only after time when he wouldn't actually deliver the money. And they're like, wait a minute, we're lawyers. We need the money, Lebowski, right?
Yeah.
And so then they start to piece this together. Now, even as I was reading this great story, and it was in Business Week, I think. Yeah. And I was like halfway through, I'm like, but how did he make the helicopter disappear? How did he know there was prints on the bank, etc.? Now, the explanation of how he did all that, which is awesome. Number one, he didn't make the helicopter disappear. They just got lucky, okay? And he says it so authoritatively that you think like, oh, he took care of the helicopter.
Yes.
Number two, the guy didn't leave prints, and his face wasn't captured on the cameras of the banks. He made that up. But when he said it, it was like, oh, damn. He's connected to law enforcement, and Torres thought it was true. And that's so clever.
I know.
Because you know what I'm saying? Because it sounds like, oh, well, he knows, right? The doctor's note, he just figured out where Torres works, sent them an email or fax or whatever it was. He forged the doctor's note. Super easy. The DIA letterhead, he found it on the internet, some blog of a former CIA agent that had posted a letter from the department, so he took it and he copied it. And remember, the guy's kind of a hacker, and he's obviously a very intelligent guy, etc. And the cell phone of the detective, he found it on the internet. He did a search of the guy's name, and somehow he found a mobile phone number and used it. So everything had an explanation. Now, one of the explanations I love is, how did he get Torres's friend, who's a legitimate, person who served in the armed forces, set her to go along? Turns out she had gone to, what is this? It's a site for sugar daddies. Seeking Arrangement?
Yes. It's similar to Seeking Arrangement. I don't have the website offhand.
It's a sugar daddy, sugar girl, whatever site, right? And apparently she'd gone there.
Sugardaddyforme.com.
Okay, she'd gone there to get a sugar daddy because she needed extra money.
Get it.
Okay.
Except don't get it.
Right. It turns out she has a fiance. Oh, disaster.
It's such a disaster. I know. This is out of a soap opera. They should make a movie out of this.
They should definitely make a movie out of this. I want to buy the rights.
Yes. So the reason why she also fell for all of this is because he promised her a government job if she helped him find individuals to work for.
But if she didn't go along, he was going to out her about the sugar daddy stuff.
Yes.
And then apparently he,
put
threatened
the
her
fiance on the no-fly list. He's like, I work for the CIA. I could put your fiance on the no-fly list. What now?
And she's thinking, well, how does he have this information? He must actually work for the CIA.
Right.
Okay, so all of this unrest. The article explains he was like acne. He had acne. He's in the basement.
He's like the stereotype of what like bloggers are thought to be, right? He's in his mother's basement. He's got
pajamas.
the acne. He's in his pajamas, right? But he has a long history of like breaking the law. In fact, since 2005, he posed as an entrepreneur seeking multi-million-dollar deals for computer hardware. He stole $1,100 from a woman whom he promised an Xbox 360 to. He was writing bad checks. He was charged in 3 criminal cases, found guilty in 1, pled no contest to another, pled guilty in a 3rd, released in 2012 after a year in prison for violating terms of his sentence in the Xbox case.
Now this is amazing because at the end of all this, he could have gotten at least 5 years for impersonating a police officer.
He also forged a judge's signature.
Oh, right. The forgery is easily 5 years. He got 3 years in his mom's basement.
He did. He just has to be under supervision for the next 3 years.
And look, the guy's touched. I get it, right? He's got mental issues, right? But they keep letting him off. I mean, the only thing he ever served any time for was a stupid Xbox thing, which was like the simplest scam of all time. Here, give me $1,000. I'm going to give you an Xbox. Ha, I'm not going to give you an Xbox. Why don't you get him for the much, much bigger stuff? You think he's not going to do it again? If I'm him, I'm encouraged by this. Next time, he's going to be President Obama.